Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Configuring the Membership Sign-Up Wizard. I'm your host, Samantha. Thanks for joining us. And before we get started, we'll just go over a few housekeeping details. So all of your microphones are muted. Any questions that you have, you can enter them into the chat window. Devin is hanging out in the chat to answer all of your questions, so you don't have to wait until the end. A recording of this webinar will be available on our YouTube channel within a few days or the latest by next week. And you can find all of our videos, including all of our past webinars and our tutorials on our YouTube channel. In addition to that, you can take a look at all of the upcoming webinars that we have scheduled by taking a look at our calendar. You can go to clubexpress.com/calendar to find out more about all of our webinars that we have scheduled. You don't have to register for them, but if you do, you can enter in items that you'd like to see us demonstrate during that particular webinar. So if you see a topic that you're really interested in, go ahead and feel free to sign up for that in advance and enter in a question that you'd like to see us answer live. In addition to that, when you're visiting one of our fabulous tutorials, make sure that you hit that subscribe button. It is not just so we get extra followers, it's so that you get notified whenever we post a new video or tutorial on our YouTube channel. So search for clubexpress.com or hit that subscribe button when you visit one of those great webinars or tutorials. And one of the last things, if you are an existing ClubExpress customer and you are enjoying using ClubExpress, we would absolutely love to hear from you. Go to clubexpress.com/reviews, and you can find a bunch of websites where we know that our customers visit to learn more about ClubExpress and other association management softwares. So it gives them a chance to see what ClubExpress is really like from your perspective and figure out if it is right for them. Now, before we dive too deep into our topic today, I want to also mention a special webinar that we are going to be hosting next month. So many of you know that we are now partnered with Lumiverse. Lumiverse is our parent company, and they also have a lot of other pieces of software in the nonprofit space. One of those is Auction Frogs. So in August, Auction Frogs is going to be doing a guest webinar through ClubExpress to speak to our customers to show them what Auction Frogs is really like, give a quick demo, and answer any questions that you have. So stay tuned and pay attention to our calendar and our ClubExpress monthly newsletter to learn when that webinar is happening and be sure to attend it. We're really excited to share some of the other Lumiverse products that we think are going to be a really great addition for a lot of our customers. They're really exciting products. If you haven't had a chance to take a look at the Lumiverse website, feel free to do that. But Auction Frogs is going to be joining us in August to tell us about their product. So if you are an organization running auctions, whether it is for a school or a sporting activity, or if you're holding auctions as a nonprofit organization, feel free to pay attention to that. All right, so today's topic is going to cover the membership sign-up wizard. And the membership sign-up wizard is kind of an interesting feature because while it really does dictate what your members' experience is going to be like for both, for renewing members and for brand new members, it's kind of the first point that you get to collect as much information as you can from everyone in your database. So there are a lot of components that go into the membership sign-up wizard, and most of those components are edited in other places on your site. So we're going to go through the membership sign-up renewal wizard. We're going to talk about all of the things that you would need to touch or configure in order to use those features as part of the sign-up wizard, why you'd want to collect certain information, where it gets stored, and then we'll talk about those versions of the member sign-up wizard. So the sign-up and renewal wizard is really 5 different wizards rolled into one. You configure them all in the same space. The first version is for a new member who's signing themselves up. The second version is when an administrator adds a new member to the database. The third is when a member is renewing themselves. The fourth is when an administrator is renewing the member. And the last option would be first login. First login is a feature that we introduced within the last couple of years, and it's really beneficial, especially for organizations using the bulk load option. And of course, it's really, really beneficial if you are an administrator who is constantly adding new members to your database without the member signing themselves up. So we're going to talk about all of those different versions. First, we're going to take a look at the membership sign-up wizard on our site, and I want to go through exactly what we're collecting, where it's stored, and how that works. So the first thing that I want to do is just switch gears really quickly and show you on the Northwest Balloon Club where the membership sign-up wizard sits. So I'm signed in as Martin Smith. Martin Smith is our favorite administrator for the Northwest Balloon Club. If I pop into the control panel, at the very top of my People tab, which is typically the first tab that you're going to see, you will see New Member Sign Up. Now, the name of New Member Sign Up might be slightly different for your organization. Remember that you do have the ability to change the names of features and modules, so it might be slightly different. However, when I select New Member Sign Up, I am faced with a grid that looks exactly like the grid that I had highlighted in my slideshow. I've just added some extra points. So we'll go to the grid that I've highlighted and we'll talk about what we're seeing here. So on the left-hand side, where I've got number one, we have a list of everything that we can potentially collect from those new members or from renewing members. There are some notes underneath each of those items. And on the right-hand side, we have 5 columns, and those 5 columns represent those 5 different versions of the membership sign-up wizard. Now, on the left, you'll see that some items have, on the right, you'll see that some items have checkboxes that are grayed out. Those items are items that are required for collection. They're not something that you can uncheck. They're not something that the user can skip over. Those will be required. So for any new member signing up or renewing, you're always going to select a member type. When members are signing up for the first time, they're always going to go through their privacy agreement. They're always going to fill out their contact information. Even administrators are going to fill out some contact information. You can even go through and fill out the bare minimum of contact information. The yellow highlighted options are options that you can add, but will require some additional configuration. So the yellow highlighted options are ones that you can certainly add to your sign-up wizard, but they're only going to work if you've actually added, say, an additional member data question, or if you have activated and configured member interests. The blue highlighted option, option number 7, that is going to be specific to the member type that you create. So for those of us familiar with creating member types, you know that you can create a member type that includes either one individual member or multiple members, like in the case of a family or a business membership. So if your membership allows for additional people, you'll have the option to add those additional members. So you can keep that box checked as part of the sign-up wizard, but it will only appear if the membership accommodates multiple people, or if the membership accommodates chapters and you're an organization that has subgroups. So if you're an organization where members are joining at the top level and they're choosing their chapter when they join right from your website, that would be something that would be built into your member type to allow for additional members to allow for members to choose a chapter, and that page would appear for them. So since we've taken a look at a bit of a breakdown of the sign-up wizard, let's take a look at the items that we've checked off in our sign-up setup. So at the top, we have our member type, our privacy agreement, our contact information. The privacy agreement is checked for my new member signing up, but it's not checked for an administrator. I don't have that checked because really the user is the one who is going to agree to that privacy agreement, even if you agree to that privacy agreement on their behalf. The user is the one who's controlling what types of emails they'd like to receive from your organization. So really, they're the ones who are going to be actually clicking that agree button. We are asking for contact information. That's standard. Now, you'll see that I'm asking the member a lot of questions initially, but as an administrator, I have almost nothing checked aside from the basics. One, that's because as an administrator, when I'm adding in a member, perhaps I don't need to go through all of that extra information. Maybe it's because I'm faced with a lack of time. Maybe it's because I don't have all of that information. Depending on the questions that you're asking in additional member data or the interest that you'd like your member to select, that may not be information that you necessarily have as an administrator. Now, if you do have that information, or you sign up, let's say 50 members to your organization, and you have the information for 5 of them, you can still go back into the member profile and add all of that in there to save the member some time. But typically, as an administrator, you might not have all of the details about that member. You may not necessarily even have all of their address information. This is why first login is going to be really beneficial. So as an admin, I do not have the time or the information to fill out an entire 10-page membership application for everyone. So what I've done is I've enabled first login. So first login allows you to configure an additional wizard that the member only sees the first time they log into your website. Now, this is true in 2 separate cases, whether it is a member who is logging in for the first time after an administrator has added them to the database as a new member, or when your members are bulk loaded into your system, activated, and then they receive their welcome email and they sign in for the first time. It's kind of a game changer, especially if you're an organization who's coming to ClubExpress brand new, and you might have a membership database that has not seen the light of day in some time. You'll probably have a lot of outdated contact information in there. It is the best chance for you to get one clean update of your database. Additionally, if you're paying attention to this webinar and you're past that bulk loaded phase, now you're just trying to maintain the database that you have. Maybe your members have already logged in the first time, so first login doesn't quite work out for them. You can still enable it. So let's talk about an issue that a lot of organizations face, which is that their members just sometimes don't sign in. So you might have members who were bulk loaded when you joined ClubExpress who still haven't signed in. It's not something that we're proud of, but if you enable that first login option, you will get the opportunity to capture that information if and when those members do decide to sign in. So there is not an expiration date on that first login feature. You can activate it at any point, and it will cover any person in your database who has never signed in. Well, now, how do I capture people who have signed in, but maybe just haven't paid attention to updating some of their information? That's where Renewal comes in. With Renewal, you can ask them to review every single page that they took a look at when they were signing up for the first time. The only pages that they wouldn't be able to edit, you'll see that they have dashes next to them, would be at the top or privacy agreement. They can still change their privacy settings. They can do that through the member profile. We'll take a very quick look at that. But they won't be doing it as part of their wizard. The next dash, is for username and password. Again, users can change their password. They don't need to do that through the sign up wizard. That's something that they can do through the member profile. And last, the club joining agreement. So they really only need to confirm that joining agreement the first time. So we don't have that reappear, we do have that reappear every time that you have renewal. My apologies. I was thinking of a different dash box. So let's talk about some of the additional dashes that you'll see. Under first login, that member type is not going to be something that you can change. Again, those changes can be made through the member profile. So anything that you see here, it's not that we can't change that at any point as a member. It's just that it's not part of the wizard. Those are things that are typically done through your member profile settings. So I've looked at how I've set up my membership sign-up wizard. I'm essentially asking my members to do all of the work, fill out their own profile, fill out their own contact information. And I, as an administrator, am not taking on too many of those duties myself. So even for the renewal wizard, all I would essentially be doing is going in and renewing a member. I'm not filling out any extra information for them. Now, this doesn't cover payment. Remember that payment is, well, it's part of this, it's a completely separate portion. So even as an administrator, if I'm signing a member up or renewing a member on their behalf, I don't have to submit payment. I don't have to do anything with payment. I can still have the member, the user, pay their own way, log into the website and perform that payment or send in a check. And if I happen to have that payment ready to go, I can certainly add that at the time of sign up. So let's go back into our control panel, and we're going to talk about the ways that we would actually access some of these screens. As an administrator, when I am adding in a member to my database, I'm doing that through the People Manager. And I don't even really need to go through my search panel. The button I need is right at the top. So if I'm adding in a new member, first thing I'm doing is selecting a member type. Now, you'll see that when we add in a member as themselves, so when I sign out of the site and I just decide to sign myself up again, I'm not going to see nearly as many of these member types. Now, remember that this is one of our demo clubs, so we have a lot of junk data that's currently sitting in there. So most of these member types are ones that we use for testing. But as an administrator, you may see additional member types that are not available to the general public, especially if you offer things like a staff membership or a lifetime membership where you want to assign that to someone because they might be free. So scroll for the membership that you would like to try. I'm going to add in an individual member. We see that description, which is something that you would configure as part of your member type. I'll go ahead and select next. Some additional information that you can configure as an admin, you can change those dates. You can also, even as a member, select how that person heard, or excuse me, even as an administrator, select how that person heard about your organization. I'm going ahead and select next. And I will go ahead and add my new member. Johnny March is joining the Northwest Balloon Club. Very excited to do it. And as an administrator, I'm just going to go ahead and add Johnny in. Now, I don't have to fill out any of this additional information. Most of this is not going to be required for an administrator. And we're going to talk about all of the additional requirements that you might have with your contact information in just a moment. But first, what I want to talk about would be our email address. And I'll just scroll back up here. Under my member information, I do have the option to add an email address. It's not required. Now, as an administrator, I have two options when I'm adding in a member. I can put their email address in if I have it and if they'd like to receive emails, or I don't have to. Many organizations try to move toward exclusive electronic communication just because it's easier, it's cheaper, but some members just choose not to provide their email address. If you have an email address for the member that you are adding as an administrator, you can enter that in, and basically from there, your job is done, because the system will issue those standard welcome emails to that new member, letting them know that they have joined, letting them know that they have an outstanding payment, and providing them with their username and temporary password. From that point on, that member can sign in using their temporary password, create a more permanent one, and make a payment if there's a payment due for that membership. If, as an administrator, you do not have an email address for that particular member, you can still go through sign up, and I'll go through and complete that for you. I'm going to go ahead and just click next without an email. And you're probably wondering, well, how is that person going to sign in? How am I going to notify that person of their login and password? How does this even work? So I can go ahead and say finish and proceed to payment. Remember that I'm skipping over a lot of that information. I just don't need it. Now I get this pop-up as an administrator, advising the member of their new username and password. So I'm going to just go ahead and copy this. I can open up an additional notepad on my computer. I can paste that into an email. Maybe I just haven't written down the email address. Maybe they just don't want their email address on file in the system for some reason. So I can send that to them any way that I would like to. I will go ahead and now process this payment. Again, if I'm an administrator and I have the payment with me, I can go ahead and say that we've received a check, enter in the check number, and record that check payment. And so now I can see that Johnny March is in my database, ready to go. And now Johnny has the opportunity to sign into their own account and enter in all of their contact information, enter in any additional items that they'd like to see added. Now, as an administrator, again, I have that really quick wizard set up for myself. That's at a bare minimum if I have no information and I just have someone who wants to be assigned, who wants to be a member, and I've just added them. I can go back into Johnny's profile. Let's say that this is one of the few people that I have some extra information for. I can go right back into basic member information and add that contact information. I can also edit the additional member data questions. So if I'm going through and adding in additional member data answers, I can do that as an administrator. I can edit their interests, which is located in website functions. I can do any number of things just from the member profile. So remember that even if you are not adding in that information as part of the wizard, you can still do so through the member profile for an individual member. Now, remember that as an administrator, you have access to the member profile. The member has access to their own profile. So even without that first login to double check their information, even without the renewal wizard to double check their information, they can do that at any point in time through their member profile. Now, let's take a quick look back before we sign up as a member who's going to see every single one of those pages in the wizard. Let's talk about the individual pages that we've added. Let's start off just going down the line here. Under website modules, interests. So our interest module is activated. And remember that we can activate modules that are not yet activated on our site by clicking this configure option in the control panel. All I do there is find the module that is disabled, which if you're looking for interests would be right at the bottom under disabled modules for this tab. We have ours activated, so I'll just click a disabled module to show you that you can change the status from disabled to active. At that point, you don't have to put interests on your menu because your members are able to access them through their member profile, but you can if you'd like to. Now, interests is a great module to have enabled, especially for sign up, because interest groups can morph into additional things across your site. You can use interest groups as the basis for committees. You can use interest group as the basis for events that you're adding to your calendar, for discussion forums, for email blasts. So there are a lot of reasons why you'd want to add interest. If you add nothing else to your sign up wizard, definitely add interest because you can ask about anything. It's essentially like a pre-built in quick survey for your members. Ask them what types of events or volunteering opportunities they're interested in. Ask them what types of ideas they think that they'd be interested in participating in throughout your year. If you have your tasks or your goals ready for the year, you can ask them specific questions about their interest in a hobby or in an organization or in advocacy issues if you're a local grassroots organization. Within interests, essentially what you're doing is setting up a category of interest with individual interests within that category. So you can see that we have some general categories under equipment. If I take a look at that interest level, or excuse me, the interest in that category, I can see all of the different interests, the number of members in them. Even within the interest module, I have the ability to send a quick email to everyone in that group. And if we go back into our control panel, additional items that you could add to your sign up wizard would include a lot of the options in our setup section. So we have additional member data, member attachments, additional charges, and we also have some items in our people options section, which we would want to take a look at too. Under additional member data, all you're really doing is configuring a question and determining if that question is going to be visible on the membership application. You have to have at least one question that is visible on the membership application in order to have additional member data appear as a part of your sign up wizard. So remember, you have to have these items configured. Otherwise, the page is not going to appear on your sign up wizard because we won't just include a blank page. Now, if I take a look at my grid here of all of the questions that I have asked, I have the question name, which is just for admin purposes, the answer type, visibility, who can edit the question, and whether or not it's going to appear on the membership application. So this is really what I want to take a look at here. NA indicates that that is not appearing on the membership application, but it could be appearing within the member profile. And then finally, optional and required, those are appearing in the membership application, and they are either optional or required. Now, let's take a look at my languages question that I've configured, which is a required question on the sign up wizard. And I'm going to select the edit icon. Remember that if I select add question, it'll show me the exact same dialogue. The only difference is that it'll be blank. I like to see how I've configured things in the past to save myself a little effort in the future. So at the very top, I have my question name. I've chosen my answer type and entered in my question text. I have my list of answers. I am requiring that they choose at least one. I'm not allowing any other information. I can if I'd like to. I'm just asking members what languages they speak. This could be useful for any number of reasons. And at the very bottom is where you determine who can see this question and where. It's going to be asked of all member types. Remember that you can ask questions that are specific to individual member types. Who the question is visible to. Now, we have three options that you've likely seen before. The answer is visible to the public, which means that it's going to be visible in the standard member directory. It's visible to the member only, or it's visible to an administrator only. The last option, visible to an administrator only, except on sign up. That means that you can ask that question at sign up. It's visible to the member once, and it's never visible again. So one of the things that I mentioned in our last webinar that we hosted called Getting Uncomfortable is that you can use that to configure some type of a security question if you'd like to. So you can think of them as disappearing answers that only an administrator can view and change and update. The member would never have access to that answer. You can use that for any number of private things that you would want to make sure stay in admin hands only. You can do it for a question that you just need answered once, or you don't want the answer to change. Next up, who can edit the questions, and whether or not this is visible on the membership application. And then finally, what level of member you're asking this of. Now, we can see that spouse and partner and junior members, those are not standard ClubExpress terms. That's just our term for secondary members and tertiary members. You can change those in your organization's club tab, whether it's club tab or league tab or association tab. You can change the terms that you use for those additional people in your memberships. So I have my questions configured. If I go back into my control panel, again, we visited additional member data. Because we have some questions configured that will appear on the membership application, that is something that will appear on the membership application because we've checked that box. Same thing with additional charges. Additional charges can be any number of things that you want to give members the opportunity to add to their membership. Organizations use this to add things like a keychain, a coffee mug, a name badge, a donation, anything like that. If I select add charge, or again, if I select an edit icon next to my charge, I can view how that may have been configured previously. So again, you'll see that we have a lot of additional items here. This is a test club that we use. So let's take a look at our name badge. At the very top, we have a name badge, a coffee mug, and a new membership initiation fee. So if you want your costs to be parsed out, if you want each of those to be in an individual line item within that transaction, it's a great idea to pull out an initiation fee and have that included as part of additional charges. Now, if I select name badge, let me go ahead and click name badge here. It's an active charge, which means that it'll appear on the additional charges page because you can have multiple charges appear at once. It's a fixed charge. Adjustable would be something that you might use for a donation. A fixed charge would be an actual item that has just what it says, a fixed cost. Who it's available to. Sometimes these items would be available to new members only in the case of the membership initiation fee. Sometimes you'd want them to be visible or optional to both new and renewing members, like a name badge. How many a person is able to purchase. the financial account that goes with that particular item. And then, of course, if you are using QuickBooks, you can enter in a QuickBooks item name to go with that charge. And you'll see that in line with many of these, many of them are not currently active, meaning they're not displayed on the additional charge page. And you'll see that we cannot delete those. So if you are looking to delete an item, an additional charge that you've added to the system, you don't have the ability to delete it. What you're going to want to do is go ahead and select that edit icon, click off the active button to deactivate the charge, and it won't display any longer as part of the membership sign-up wizard. Next up, we have attachments. Member attachments would be useful for licenses, certificates, anything like that. Now, if I'm taking a look at my grid of attachments, in the same way that I had the option to activate and deactivate certain items, I can enable and disable different attachments that I'm asking for. Now, if I take a look at one of my active attachments, let's say a pilot's license, I can see that this is a required attachment, meaning that I'm not able to advance through the sign-up wizard if I don't include that attachment. So if I select the edit icon, and again, it's going to bring up the exact same window as if I selected the add attachment icon. The title and description, both of those are going to be visible to the member. The status is active, who can view it, who can upload it, and what the format is. So if I take a look at my formats, images and documents, so images are going to include image files. Documents would include document files. An item that would fit into both categories would be a PDF. Most people, if they're uploading something, a document, for example, are typically uploading a PDF. There are a lot of different options there, whether or not it supports versioning and whether or not it's required. We have several tutorials on all of the items that we're going through today. So if you're curious to learn about versioning attachments, for example, if you want members to be required to upload a renewed license annually when they renew their membership, you can ask the system to support versioning as part of that attachment so that their new license never replaces their old license. You can have a record of all of the licenses. Anything that you'd like to do, it can handle it. Instead of saying that this is required, I'll just go ahead and select no, and I'll go ahead and save my changes. Now that means that I don't have to upload all of those attachments. They are just optional. And finally, let's take a look at our people options. Our people options are going to include all of the types of contact information that we can collect, not just from our primary members, but from additional secondary and tertiary members as well. At the very top, this is just basic information that you're collecting from your primary member or from an individual member, whether or not you would like to require certain types of information, whether or not you're requiring emails, whether or not you are requiring birthdays and sponsors. If I scroll down, I have fewer options for secondary and primary members, but a lot of that is going to be lumped into information level. At the top of both of those selections, I'm deciding if I want to collect detailed contact information or basic contact information. So your detailed contact information is going to include additional address information, work information if you're collecting work information from your members. I can also determine whether or not I'm requiring email addresses and birthdays for additional members. So again, these are things that determine the length of the membership sign-up wizard. They determine your members' experience. So think about the level of information you're collecting and how much time the member is going to spend actually signing up for your organization. Now, in this particular example, I have activated or turned on every single page in the membership sign-up wizard. It's going to take a minute. Consider what your sign-up process looks like and the information, the level of information that you're collecting from your members when you're talking about the ease of sign up for your organization. So if we go right back, we'll take a look at this in a moment, but if we take a look at the level of information that we're collecting here, let's start with our primary member and the membership they're collecting as part of just even a solo membership. We're collecting work information. We might be collecting emergency contact information. We might be asking for two separate addresses if you are an organization who supports snowbirds, people who stay in a warmer location half the year and ski for the other half the year. So keep in mind that it can be a little bit daunting if your membership sign up wizard is more like a home loan application. So keep all of these in mind. If you don't need to collect it all at the same time, consider releasing surveys to your members to collect additional info, or consider parsing out some of those items, sending out an email asking members to go into their interests to select interests, things like that. If we scroll down to our miscellaneous options, this is where we determine whether or not we're requiring email addresses. Now, if you are requiring email addresses, you won't be able to advance through the sign-up wizard without filling that in. You'll also you have the option to have a warning if the email address field is blank, even if you aren't requiring it. Now, you'll notice that when I was going through my signup wizard, I have this check to say that email addresses are required, but I didn't need to input that as an administrator. It does not require it for administrators entering in a member. So you could potentially, on accident, advance through the signup wizard. If you're just looking for those quick little red dots, you won't see that as an administrator. You will, however, get a notification at the end that says, here's the username and password for this particular member. And of course, you can just go ahead and email that to them. So we've taken a look at where we're collecting information, how we're determining the information that we are collecting, and what it's like as an administrator signing someone up very bare bones. Now, as an administrator, my experience signing up is going to be largely the same as a member. It's just going to be potentially a different number of pages that I'm visiting. So the same way that I am interacting, or I'm about to interact with the sign-up wizard as a fresh member, that's going to be the same for an administrator. So what I'm going to do is I am going to sign out as Martin Smith. We'll say goodbye to Martin for a couple of moments here. And I am going to, on the menu, join now. So you'll see that I still have the option to log in. I've got the join now button right on my menu. I also have the join now button embedded in the header here. I'll go ahead and click that, or click the one that is in the menu. And at the very top, I have the option to sign in as a new member or sign up for a business membership. Now, if you are an organization that has business memberships and you have at least one of those business memberships active, your members will always see this when they sign in. So if this is something that's going to be confusing for your members, just keep that in mind. Maybe potentially outline something like that on your homepage if you think that might be a barrier to people signing up with you, if you think they might get confused and abandon their sign up right away. I can also just join as a new member. So as a new member, I can view a shorter list of the sign up options that are available to me. It's not quite as long, but it's still not quite short either. So I can choose individual member again. And I can choose how I learned about this particular organization. I get my running total, and you're seeing again that I'm seeing pretty much the exact same screen as an administrator. Now I have my privacy agreement. So with the privacy agreement, again, I can change this as a member anytime I'd like to. So maybe at the start, I say, sure, go ahead and send me all the emails that you'd like to send me. And then perhaps maybe I'd tone that down and say that I don't want to receive emails. Now, if a member chooses to not agree entirely with the terms of use and privacy, then they just simply aren't allowed to sign up. I can say that I agree. Your users might see an additional item that you would have configured as an administrator to say that you share your club data with another organization. Doesn't have to be anything sinister. Maybe you send your member list over to a local bike shop if you're a cycling organization so that they can send out mailers for bike tune-up coupons. This could be really anything that you might be sharing your data for. So just keep in mind that again, this is something that if you want to highlight this, highlight where the data is coming from, where the data is going, it can really help your members when they're signing up. So I'll say, sure, I'll go ahead and allow this data sharing. Next up, I have my contact information that I'm collecting, and we have a sea of red dots, far more red dots than I saw as an administrator. That's because this information is being required of members. So I am going to go ahead and add in a new member. We'll add in Carol Blue. Carol Blue is joining the Northwest Balloon Club. She's very excited about it. We'll go ahead and add in her birthday. And we can go ahead and add in a phone number and an email address. And I'm just going to go ahead. Now, if we scroll down, we still see information that is not required of us. I'll go ahead and quickly fill in some additional address information just to get those items all squared away. Now, our emergency contact information is also going to be available to us. This is not something that we're requiring. If we are requiring emergency contact information, you'll see those red dots. Also keep in mind, many of the things that your members might fill out here, especially emergency contact information, if you are an activity-based organization, can be added into events when a member signs up to an event. So let's talk about emergency contact information specifically. I have added that in one time as a member. I don't necessarily want to be asked what my emergency contact is every time I sign up for a ski trip. So as an administrator, and we've gone through this in a couple of our additional webinars on events and questions. So when you create an event, you can also create event questions that are linked to questions that are asked as part of additional member data questions, or contact information, or just information in general that's collected through member sign up. What that means is that when Carol Blue signs up for an event that's asking for emergency contact information, she doesn't have to input that again. The system automatically populates it with what she's added to her member profile. She can certainly change it. Maybe her emergency contact is actually coming on the trip with her. She can change that going forward. She can change it through her member profile. She can change it as a one-off for the event. But keep in mind that a lot of this information can do double duty for you. I'll go ahead and select next. And now I'm taking a look at my membership questions, my additional member data questions, and we'll see that we have our one required question. I'll go ahead and let them know that Carol speaks both Spanish and Italian, and we'll fill out a couple of additional questions even though they are not required. We have another question that another item that is required, and we'll choose our expiration date and click next. And now I have my member attachment. So we can see we're now at 5 pages. So this is kind of what you want to keep in mind when you are creating your sign up wizard. As an admin, it was really easy for me. As a member, granted, you only have to do this, once a year or maybe a couple of times a year, but keep in mind that this could get just a little bit long for members. So we have our optional attachments. If it's required, it's going to have that red exclamation point. To add in an attachment, all I have to do is select add, choose the file from my computer, and add it into the member attachments list. So if I just go ahead and select an image, and I've just picked a nice little icon that I can use, I can go back and view it. I can remove it. Now I have that green check mark noting that my attachment's been uploaded. I'll go ahead and select next. And now I have my list of interests. So these interest categories should look pretty familiar. We took a look at these from our control panel. So under equipment, now I have all of these individual interests that I can participate in. Now with each of these, I have a description. What you could include in the description is, hey, we have a forum set up for this. So if you click this interest, you're going to be automatically subscribed to that forum. Or we host a lot of electronics and navigation virtual webinars. So if you add yourself to that interest, you will be the first to know when we start hosting those and when we have signups open for those. So consider adding in some additional info for your interest page what are the benefits for me actually going through this page and selecting these interests? What do I get out of it? What are the implications? What happens if I don't? I'll go ahead and select a couple of interests for myself. Select next. And now I'm faced with creating my username and password. So we'll go ahead and we'll create a password here. And go ahead and select next. Now we have our additional items that we can purchase as part of our sign up. We'll see here that at the very top, my new member initiation fee has a checkbox that's grayed out. That's because while I want that charge to be completely separate from the membership dues, I also know that it's required. So members can't adjust it, they can't change it, they can't remove it. I am going to add a coffee mug and a name badge. And you know what? I'll get two. Maybe Carol would like to give one to her friend. I'll go ahead and select next. And now I have the sign up agreement for your organization, or excuse me, your joining agreement. I can select I agree and hit next. This is a joining agreement that you configured as part of your organization. This is separate from the ClubExpress agreement that you would have agreed to when you are actually signing up for the site. So this is something that you would create between your members and your club. I'll go ahead and select next. And then I get my membership summary, including a summary of my charges. I can go ahead and finish and proceed to payment. My new membership is processed. I now can go ahead and pay for this membership. Because this is a demo club, I, as a member, don't have very many ways that I can actually submit a payment. I'll go ahead and click done. And I am now logged out. I can certainly log back in if I'd like to. It's just going to tell me that I have to finish and proceed to payment. So what I'm going to do instead is log in as Martin Smith. I'll go ahead and visit my control panel. It looks like Martin Smith has an outstanding payment as well. And in the People Manager, and I can do this through transaction search, I can do it through the People Manager. I'm just doing it through the People Manager now. I've searched for Carol Blue, who is our brand new member, and I can't find her. That's because I am initially visiting the People Manager, and it's going to pull in those default search options, which means that I'm only going to be looking at active and expired members. Carol has just signed up, and Carol is not an active member yet because she has not paid for her membership. She is currently, I'll go ahead. She is currently under the category of new payment pending. New payment pending is going to show up, and we'll go ahead and select search, as a pending membership status. So pending means that while Carol has completed the sign-up process and her membership doesn't require approval, so she's ready to be a member whenever she pays her dues. We can see that $sign at the top right-hand corner here. I'll go ahead and click that. And I will say that Carol came in and paid cash. I'll record my cash payment. And now I'm doing the song and dance again. It's no longer a new payment pending status that I'm looking for. Now I am in fact looking for that active status. I'm still going to search for Carol. I'll go ahead and select search. And now I have all of that great information. Carol is an active member, ready to go. Carol, in the meantime, has received several emails. Carol got an email thanking her for joining the organization. She also got an email letting her know that there was a payment due that was associated with that. And she would have gotten an email stating that her payment has been applied and processed. So to sum up, and we'll kind of go through a couple of these additional things here just to wrap up what we've taken a look at today. So how do we get there? Well, if you're a new or renewing member, you sign up on the website, you have a renewal link in your email or a pop-up on your site. So if you are showing renewal flags to your members, when they're logged into your site, they'll see a quick pop-up letting them know that it's time to renew. An administrator either adds or renews members through the People Manager. Bulk loaded members get to that sign-up wizard the first time they log in with their temporary password. And remember that your first login wizard, pretty much the same as your new member sign-up wizard. All of those pages are going to look the same. Even with renewal, the page is going to look the same. All of the information will be populated already. The only difference between your sign up screens and your renewal screens is that the information's already there. It's just asking the member to confirm it. And then taking a look at the items that you need to configure. So you would need to configure your member types, which determines the selection at sign up, whether or not memberships include chapters and additional members. You would need to configure your modules. Interests only. It's the only module that is really affected by the membership sign up wizard. And then additional features to pay attention to, those data questions, attachments, charges, and your people options. And so then again, keeping in mind that with your sign up wizard, we went through about 10 pages. You may not need to collect so much information from your members, or perhaps you do. There are plenty of organizations that have a very lengthy member sign up process. So keep in mind just whatever suits your organization. You can even play around with different membership sign up wizards if you'd like. You can see what it looks like for members signing up and only visiting 3 pages as opposed to visiting 10. This is something that, and we don't really talk about Google Analytics quite often, but one of the things that you could consider doing if you are particularly tech savvy is taking a peek at Google Analytics. If that is something that you're using on your website, remember that we don't charge anything for you to use Google Analytics on your ClubExpress website. Take a look at what your experience is like for your members. If they get to that sign up page, see that there are 10 pages that they'd have to review and abandon sign up. Take a look at what it's like if you experiment with different styles of signing up. Maybe you want to go with complete bare bones of a sign up for the first time, and then have first login be when the members actually input all of their information. So thinking about that as an option. And again, this is us taking just a very light step back to see the bigger picture here. Let's say, for example, that you want to ask your members, not even for attachments, maybe you want to ask them about interest, but maybe you want to give them a chance to catch their breath before they dive headfirst into your organization. Maybe I'll keep in my additional charges and my joining agreement, but right now I am asking them to agree to a privacy agreement, very standard. I'm asking them to fill out contact information. I can even completely remove a lot of the required pieces of contact information if I'd like to. They're visiting additional charges. Again, they don't even have to do that, and their joining agreement. I've cut that application in half. But then maybe I'll let them sign in. I'll let them sign up, become a member, spend a day, maybe a couple of hours on the website, and then they'll leave. They'll feel refreshed. They'll feel like they signed up. They saw what's available. They have a clear vision about what they want to do in the club. And then when they come back for a second time, that's when you hit them with that first login, where they've had a chance to explore. They've had a chance to take a quick tour. Now you're asking for information from them. Now they have to put in a little bit of work. So it doesn't just inundate them with questions immediately. It's going to ask them questions as a follow-up, as opposed to, again, pounding on the doors of your members, asking them for those questions. So it looks like we did get started just a couple of minutes late today. So thank you everyone for being so patient. So we have a couple of minutes left, but we got started late. So Devin, how are we doing on questions?
Yeah, there's just one or two things we can review since we are butting up against time limit. One thing I wanted to go back over was, is there any sort of limitation on the file size or the number of files you can have uploaded through member attachments?
That is a great question. Size, I believe that there is actually a note. And let's see. I don't know actually off of the top of my head if there is a size limit. There isn't a limit to the number of attachments that you can ask for. And I am not actually sure if there is a size limit. It might be our
pretty
standard.
Sure, yeah, I think it's the standard 100 megabyte file size limit.
And if anyone's wondering what we mean by standard, it's a general limit that we apply to things that are being uploaded to your site, which can usually accommodate most anything. The only thing that you might have issue with is a large video that you might be embedding on your site. And we just ask that you maybe adding to your site. And we just ask that you embed the video as opposed to uploading it to your site. So that 100 megabyte limit, we're pretty sure is the limit for our attachments here.
And then the only other thing I wanted to see if we can review for people is can you show people where to, I didn't see if we covered it already, but where to limit what is required and what is collected in the member contact information.
Yes. So under people options, if we take a look at the top section, so this is going to capture the bulk of the information from your member. So under membership options, are we requiring an alternate, or excuse me, are we asking for an alternative address or work information? So those are two large chunks of a contact page that you could easily eliminate. If we eliminate the option for a second address, that cuts our contact information page in half. And if you don't need your members to have an option to enter an additional address, or if you don't want to necessarily deal with an additional address as an administrator, you can remove that. And if we scroll down, what additional information are we capturing? Are we asking for a nickname and for spouse information? We can click no. And again, all of these just really help us simplify, or the opposite, get more detailed information out of your members. If you are really looking to expand your outreach and maybe you want their spouse's first and last name, expand your network, you can ask for that information. And if we scroll all the way down, we have some of the same options available for both secondary and tertiary members. And at the bottom, that's where these are kind of I would say they're not the most important things on this page, but they are pretty important. So this is where you're determining if you are asking for mobile phone numbers and if you're asking for email addresses. Remember that we have a text messaging option that you can add to your website. It does have a small additional fee that it carries with it. But if you are intending on using text message, you definitely want to consider requiring a mobile phone number. It's just going to make it easier to try and implement that in the future.
All right, and I think that's pretty much it. And it looks like we're close to our time limit today.
Right on time. All right. Well, thank you everyone for taking the time to join us today. We really appreciate you. And we will get a copy of this uploaded and posted to our YouTube channel. Don't forget to join us next week for another amazing webinar. Devin will be back better than ever. And Devin is going to be covering ad hoc reporting for a few webinars over the course of this summer. Devin, how excited are you about it?
Oh yeah, I think next week we'll be covering the basics and how to create an express review or express view. Goodness, an express view report from scratch. So we'll go over how to access your different data points and how to kind of navigate the site as total. And then as we go on, we'll get more and more advanced throughout the summer.
All right. Well, I, for one, am very much looking forward to it. So stay tuned. You'll see that on our calendar. So you can you can register for that in advance. You'll also be receiving an email as an administrator, and feel free to join all of the ad hoc reporting webinars, even if you have not purchased ad hoc reporting as part of your ClubExpress suite. So it is an extra cost feature, but if you haven't taken a look at it yet, it's one of our only modules that we offer a free trial for. So if you take a look at the webinars, or even if you haven't considered it, it's a great opportunity to just dip your toe in the water, see how ad hoc reporting works, see if it's something that works for your organization, and potentially start yourself on a free trial with all of the information that you will learn from Devin this summer. All right. And with that being said, thank you for joining, and we'll see you in the next webinar. Bye, everyone.